All right now?
Now, I will ask you again. Have you any further witnesses you wish to call? Will you speak up, please?
No.
Is there anything you wish to say before the bench reaches a decision?
Well, it's a social security, really.
Stand up.
The social security only gave me £13.70 a week. You can't keep 2 children on that and yourself. There's £1.90 for the first baby and £1.90 for the second baby and £6.55 for me and 60 pence extra because I've been on it so long, and the rest the rest's for rent. You've got to find extra money from somewhere. Paddy wasn't living with me all the time. He didn't give me very much either. He went to the bothy a lot. I didn't think I was doing wrong in that way. But I'm finished with him now. I wouldn't have gone with him in the first place, only the benefit's too low. I expect the man who was spying on me got 40 quid a week for that. I got £13.70 to look after 2 children and myself. It's like Paddy said. If I'd have been living with a different man every night, instead of just one, I wouldn't have been had up at all. I mean, is that supposed to be better?
They asked for me yet?
No, not yet.
Carol Greggs, we are satisfied that you were cohabiting with Patrick Hooney during the 2 period of the summonses, and therefore find you guilty of making false statements for the purpose of securing social security benefits to which you were not entitled. Is there anything known?
Well, there are 2 previous convictions, Your Worships. On November 30th, 1970, at the age of 17, the defendant was found guilty at Stackham Magistrates Court of theft from her place of work and was given a conditional discharge. On April the 5th, 1971, at the same court, she was found guilty of obtaining money by means of a forged instrument and was placed on probation for 12 months. You have heard that Miss Greggs is a single woman with 2 children. The first was born on May 25th, 1971, and the second on August 12th, 1972. The defendant herself is 19 years old, having been born on November 7th, 1953.
Thank you. It's only about a year, then, since she completed her probation.
Yes.
I suppose there isn't a social inquiry report.
Oh, yes, Your Worship.
Oh, thank you, Miss Owen.
Alice Owen, probation officer. It was my intention to have a written report ready for you today, Your Worships, but I've had rather a lot to prepare for the Crown Court and was only able to see Carol this morning. I wonder, therefore, if it would be possible for me to give an oral report.
Yes, thank you, Miss Owen. We'll hear what you have to say. And then perhaps you'd let us have a supplementary report.
Thank you, Your Worships. I have known the defendant since she was first put on probation for 12 months on April the 5th, 1971, and much of the information I have derives from that period. Carol has had rather an unsettled background. When she was 8, she was taken into care at the request of her mother, whose husband had left her and who had taken another man into the house. Carol was very unhappy at home after her father left. She didn't feel liked by the man who'd taken his place, and she ran away from home twice. The second time, she was missing for 2 days. She was placed in St. Matthew's Children's Home, and later she went to foster parents, where she settled quite happily until they had a baby of their own and decided they could not keep Carol any longer. Once again, she was boarded out, and again she settled happily until her foster father became ill, and it was decided that Carol should be returned to the children's home. Now, she remained there until she left school at 15. Oh, and then she got a job at... Oh, sorry. Thank you. left school at 15 and she got a job at Daly's Sweet Factory, and she found lodgings at the YWCA hostel in Lamster. When she was 17, she committed her first offence. She stole some sweets from the factory where she worked. I think I should mention, Your Worships, that it did transpire in court that she had taken the sweets to give to the children at St Matthew's Children's Home, where she still visited after she left them. Well, after the case, she was offered her job back, but she wanted to leave, so she took another job at Havering's Hosiery Factory, and she found new lodgings as well, at the address where she now lives. Now, she worked there regularly for about 2 months before she had her first baby in May 1971. It was during this pregnancy that she was placed on probation for defrauding the post office of a sum of £10. Now, Carol was very depressed at the beginning of her probation. She was having her first baby, and the father of the child had abandoned her. In fact, she was so depressed that she took an overdose of aspirin. She tried to walk to a hospital as soon as she'd done it, but she collapsed in the road. She was taken to Benbury Hospital, and she remained there as a voluntary patient until after the baby was born. Well, as soon as that happened, she seemed to become well and happy again, and she completed the rest of her probation very satisfactorily. And she wanted to keep the baby, and she cared for him very well. In fact, I've seen both the children today. They're with the court matron, and they really are a credit to her. I'd like you to know that.
Are there any affiliation orders regarding the children, Miss Owen?
Well, no, Your Worship. She refused to name either of the fathers. I did try to persuade her to get the father of the first child to pay maintenance, but she wouldn't say who he was. Of course, she had completed her probation before the second baby was born, but she feels the same way about him. She won't name the father.
Well, I'm sorry to have interrupted you. Please continue.
Well, up until this morning, I hadn't seen Carol for about a year, since the end of her probation. And I must say the change in her appearance worried me a great deal. I could see how depressed she was even before she told me. I'm afraid she's as distressed now as she was at the beginning of her probation. Well, I know she partly looks so ill because she's had flu. The case had to be adjourned because she had it at the time set for the first hearing, but it isn't just the aftermath of flu. I do feel, with respect, this is a case where medical and psychiatric reports would be valuable.
I see, Miss Owen. Reports on bail, is that what you're suggesting?
Well, no, Your Worship, she has so many problems. It's just not that she's worried about her case. She just can't seem to make a go of life at the moment. Well, it's partly her accommodation, of course. She lives in a single-bed sitter with a wash basin and a toilet upstairs, but there are no cooking facilities, just a single electric ring, so she can't really cook a lot. And she is obliged to buy mainly prepared foods, which is one of the reasons why she's always bothered about money, plus the fact she won't use anything second-hand for the children. She won't even accept gifts of second-hand clothes. But it isn't just these practical difficulties. I do think with a little help and guidance, she could overcome those. It's just that she's so deeply distressed, I think she needs more fundamental help. And now I've seen her like this before, and I do feel, well, for the present, that she's so unhappy that she needs constant care and close supervision.
Thank you, Miss Owen.
Excuse me, Your Worships. I don't know if I'm speaking out of turn, but I'm her mother.
The defendant's mother?
Yes, I've been sitting here listening to all this, and I wondered if I might say something.
Would you like your mother to come forward and speak?
She can come if she wants to.
Would you please come forward?
Would you give your name?
Yes, I'm Mrs. Annie Greggs, and I live at Dunrome in Roderick Street, Lamster. Well, you see, I heard about all this, and I expected I'd be libelled, as usual, every time she comes up to court. So I thought I'd like to say something to defend myself.
Madam, you are not the defendant. You've no call to defend yourself.
Oh, yes, I have. Every time she comes up, I'm blamed for everything. Or because she was put into care when she was 8. You see, it's made out that me and Jim was bad to her. But I've got 2 other children, and they took to him. They didn't have tempers and tantrums and play truant from school and ran away from home till I was half balmy with worry.
Mrs. Greggs,
see, I didn't know what to do with her. She had to have a psychiatrist at the children's home. She was so much trouble. But he didn't cure her, did he? He can put her straight, so why blame me?
It's not a matter
She's had
of
all
blame,
the
Mrs.
care in the world. She's had foster mothers, foster fathers, all the experts at the children's home. Look what's happened. This is the third time she's been up in court, apart from when she was taken into care. She's got herself landed with 2 children from nobody knows where and living with a married Irishman. And I'm sick of being blamed for it.
Miss Owen was not implying criticism when she mentioned you. She was just reporting the facts.
Well, she didn't tell you what I've tried to do for the girl, did she? Umpteen times I've been round to see her, I've taken her things, tried to talk to her. She won't listen to me.
Thank you, Mrs. Greggs.
Would you stand down now? This way.
We do need reports, I think.
Yes, certainly. It's in custody, I'm afraid.
Yes, Miss Owen's right.
I'm not so sure.
You're not?
No.
How can we let a girl in that state go on bail? I mean, if anything should happen...
Perhaps we should adjourn.
Oh, I think so.
Mr. Clark, we're going to adjourn.
Court rise.
Yes, Your Worship.
Saw the children when I nipped out just now. Bobby's asleep and Tony's in the playpen they've got with half a dozen toys, perfectly happy.
I suppose they don't realise where they are.
No, of course they don't. Have you seen Miss Ring? She's over there.
Yeah. I spoke to her this morning. She said how nice the children looked.
She's assistant matron at the home now.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, nice you've kept up with her all these years.
Yeah. You shouldn't have said that about the aspirins. I wouldn't really do it. Not with the children. Not with them.
No, I had to say it. I really am worried about you.
What did you mean about special care? Does that mean a hospital again?
Well, it would be in the hospital wing, but remands aren't treated like other prisoners, especially when you...
Prison?
Court rise.
Don't worry.
Carol Greggs.
Stand, please.
What this hearing has shown is that you have several problems in life which have probably contributed towards the offence you have committed. And we're going to remand this case while medical and psychiatric reports are prepared so that we can examine your circumstances more fully. You'll be remanded in custody for 3 weeks so that the reports can be made.
But what about my children?
I'm coming to that. If you cannot arrange for anyone to take them,
Well, there's nobody.
then they'll be looked after. Miss Owen will make the arrangements.
You mean they'll be put into care? But that's what happened to me.
I see from your medical report, Miss Greggs, that you're undergoing a course of treatment now because the doctor found you were in a run-down condition. I hope you're feeling better for that.
Yes, thank you.
Good. We have also received your psychiatric report, which says that you're a young woman of good, average intelligence, which means that you're capable of really making something of your life. But the trouble is, as the report says, too often you don't use your intelligence, but are swayed by your emotions instead. I'm going to read you something of what it says because I think you may find it helpful. Carol is a girl who will do almost anything for affection, as she's shown from a very early age. And it goes on to say how true this has been in so many instances in your life. How when you were a child, your fondness for your father got you into trouble, because when he went away you became unruly and unmanageable and ran away twice in the hope of finding him again. All Carol achieved by this was that she was put into care, a move which she regarded as a total rejection by her mother, and which precipitated a period of deep disturbance for which she received psychiatric treatment at St. Matthew's Children's Home. Since then, Carol has been subject to depression whenever she feels rejected, and this has not been an uncommon experience in her life. Both of the men who fathered her 2 children let her down when she told them she was pregnant. It is because of this instability in her relationships that Carol will not disclose the paternity of her children. She does not want to share their affection with anyone. They are her hope of a permanent, close relationship, and her present separation from them is deeply distressing to her, particularly as they've been placed in care. For Carol feels that being put into care was the beginning of all her troubles in life. Her present offence was committed largely because of her children. She wants them to have nothing but the best, and whatever Mr. Hooney provided was probably used for this purpose. Carol says that as a result of the present prosecution, she's finished with Mr. Hooney. If she keeps to this, she's again likely to experience an emotionally difficult time when she will again feel let down and unwanted. She will need all the friendship and understanding she can get, and could benefit from psychiatric treatment if she's willing to accept it. Do you see, Carol, how very often it would have been better for you if you'd used your intelligence instead of following your emotions quite so easily? Yes. Would you be willing to accept psychiatric treatment?
I don't mind.
Miss Owen, is there something?
I have some additional information, Your Worship.
Oh, please come forward.
I have just come from seeing the defendant's landlord, Mr. James. I'm afraid he's taken possession of her room since she's been away. He sent me a letter this morning saying he had done so. Perhaps Your Worships would like to see it. I've just come from seeing Mr. James, but I'm afraid he's adamant. He says that Carol broke her tenant's agreement by taking Mr. Hooney in to live with her, and that she hasn't paid the rent for 6 months, and he's changed all the locks on the doors.
But surely she had a rent allowance as part of a supplementary benefit.
Yes, Your Worship.
Well, I was going to pay it. I was trying to. But you can't on the money they give you. Well, he never wanted the money anyway. He never came round for the rent because he wanted me out. Well, that's why he spied on Paddy and me, because he wanted me out. But he'd never have got me out if you hadn't have sent me to prison.
It's no use blaming others for what you brought on yourself. If you've broken your tenant's agreement, if you've not been paying the rent, you placed your tenancy in jeopardy yourself. We can't go into the rights and wrongs of your eviction here. This is neither the time nor the place.
Excuse me, Your Worship, there is just one other thing. I should like to say that the vacancy in the mother and baby home mentioned in my supplementary report is now confirmed.
Thank you, Miss Owen. Really, it's difficult to know what to do. She obviously can't take care of herself.
Prison? There is a training scheme.
I don't think that's the answer. What about this hostel?
At least she'd be with her children.
Yes, I think that's the best we
Lots
can
of
do.
considerations.
Excuse me, Your Worships. I won't see my own daughter without a place to go to.
Mrs. Greggs, will you come forward, please?
You stand here, please.
Do you mean you'd be willing to give your daughter a home?
Oh, yes, but not the children. I'm willing to help her, but I couldn't manage the children.
Thank you, Mrs. Greggs.
Will you stand, please? Miss Greggs.
Carol Greggs, we have given your case careful thought and have considered all that's been said in the reports we've received about the problems you have. But we really do feel that you've not tried hard enough to cope with your problems. You've been too ready to turn to dishonest means of obtaining money. And we want to impress upon you that you're guilty of serious offences in making false statements for the purpose of obtaining social security benefits. It may help you to realize how serious when I tell you that this court is empowered to send you to prison for 3 months for this offence, or fine you up to £100. We want you to realize that unless you change your attitude and are determined from now on to live within your income, you're in danger of falling into the habit of dishonesty whenever you're confronted with difficulties. Now, we understand your difficulties, and we realize that you're fond of your children, but you must not make that an excuse for law-breaking. By law-breaking, you can only harm and never benefit your children. Do you realize that now?
Yes.
Now, we feel that in order to make you understand that it is possible to manage on a small income, you need some training in home management and cookery. Now, such training is, of course, available in prison, but working on your behalf, Miss Owen has found a vacancy for you in a mother and baby hostel, which runs a training scheme for young mothers and which is approved by the Home Office. So, we have decided to place you on probation for 2 years with a condition of residence at the Burton Park Hostel. Now, you probably won't like it very much, but at least you'll be able to take your children with you, and arrangements can be made for you to have psychiatric treatment while you're there. Do you understand?
Yes. Thank you.
Now, you know about probation, of course, because this is your second probation. A second chance for you and your children to keep you together. Take this chance, Carol. Of course, if you break your condition of residence, or any other condition of your probation, you'll be brought back, and may not be dealt with quite so leniently.
That completes today's list, Your Worships.
Thank you. We'll just sign the register. Thank you.
Court rise.